In this video I'll be comparing two starter motors for the Rambler American with the same part number, 25033. Now according to Rock Auto and other sources, that should be the correct number for the 1963 Rambler American with the flathead or the OHV inline 6 cylinder engine. Both of these came from Rock Auto. Actually, I'm not too sure about this one. Now again, both of them were sold under the same part number, but they're actually a bit different. This one I got from Rock Auto, and as you can see there, it's 25033. Now it has just the Remy logo on it, but on the start itself you can see Delco Remy named there. I'll get into that in just a second. Now, first of all, as you can see, the angles of the solenoid relative to the nose are the same for both. They look exactly the same from there. And visually you can also see that the housing nose part itself, this part here between the hole and the nose here, they're actually the same. And both gears are at the same distance. This one actually goes in just a little bit more, maybe 2 millimeter more. So just have an idea there. I'm actually gonna use the vernier to measure the distance there. So that one is just sticking in a tad, that much there. So that's about a 2 millimeter gap right there. Actual measurement is 1 and 48 millimeters, or 1/8 less, 1/8 under 2 inches. So that's 7/8. Looks like 1 inch and 7/8. 1 and 7/8. And now the major difference for me is, about a year ago I did a comparison of two starter motors, and one of them would actually grind until it finally wouldn't, it would just spin. You could hear it spinning, but it wouldn't actually turn the flywheel. And I'm pretty sure the reason was the reason was this gear right here. So as you can see, that one is quite a bit longer than that one. And again, these are the same part numbers. This part is pretty much the same. Another difference is that this one is a lot thicker. You can see that, whereas this one is a lot thinner. So I've had a good experience with this starter in terms of gear mesh. It always meshed really well. Now unfortunately it's not working right. It's turning over very slowly. And I've got two brand new batteries, and they're huge batteries, so I know the batteries can't be the problem. I've measured resistance across the wires, and the starter wires, one of them, the positive, is actually 1/2 inch thick, so the wire can't be too thin. I measured for resistance, so I know that is not the problem. That shouldn't be the problem, at least unless something really weird is going on, which again is possible. The scientist always assumes everything is possible, even the impossible. But again, you can see, moving on, what matters is this distance here. This is what's bolted onto the car. The overall length, this part here, doesn't matter in terms of the starter. The other one with the different angle of the solenoid, it would almost hit the clutch, the linkages for the gears. But in terms of the starter and the bell housing, like flywheel, this is what matters right here. Now, over there you can actually see a slight mark from the starter where it engages the flywheel. And you can see that that is long enough. It's shorter than this here. So this should work. This starter here should work because the ring here, it's got enough width in order to mesh properly with the flywheel. So basically the flywheel has to be a little bit narrower than the gears. If the flywheel is like that thick, that wide, and the gear on the starter is like that wide, that means that the gear from the starter will only mesh with a little bit of the flywheel, and that is very bad. You want the whole gear to mesh with the whole gear entirely. So both of them have to be at least the same width, but ideally the ring gear, I don't know what this gear is called actually. This gear on the starter should be wider than the flywheel, the gear on the flywheel. And that's to allow, again, full contact, right? This gear actually experiences a lot more force because it's so small. Remember, this little gear is turning the massive flywheel gear and the engine. These notches here, by the way, they're normal. That's made there for ease of to make the gears mesh more easily. And as you can see, there's no marks, no bad marks, no deformation on the starter, so it's worked pretty well, except in terms of meshing, except for the fact that now it turns very slowly. Now, if I had to, I could replace the mechanical portion onto the motor of the other starter, so I could swap these out, and I might have to do that, but I'm pretty certain I don't see why this starter here should not mesh perfectly, should not work fine. I am a bit disappointed that this didn't last very long. Again, there could be some other issue, but I don't see, like, these things are they should be very, very durable. So even if you put a few more volts than necessary, it should still hold up. I had that DeSoto and I actually put 12 volts on a 6-volt starter and it would work just fine. So voltage or any generator or alternator voltage fluctuations, it shouldn't matter. Now I'll go over here behind the starter. One thing I noticed, slight difference again, is that this one, it's the copper pin from the solenoid that goes to the motor, it's a bit longer. This one, it's a bit shorter. It's got this rubber boot. The other one does as well. It seems that on this one the rubber boot is actually sticking out a little bit. This one also has a, you can see, little insulating washer, whereas the other one looks like it doesn't. Now, on the starter motor, on the motor part, got the number there, Delco Remy 110905 then a 6027 and 3. I'm not sure what these numbers. This here should be the part number. And on the other one, it's actually different. 110856 and 7C16 Delco Remy. And on the cast iron housing part, 181, and on this one it's actually 201. So even though these have the same part number and they were bought for the same application, there are a few differences between them. Now hopefully, again, we can only be 100% certain of something once I try it, right? But I don't see why they shouldn't interchange and be compatible perfectly. and I'll probably make sure of that. I'll be sure of that on the next video. I still like to, I'm going to send a message to Rock Auto and see why this starter motor would have been turning so slowly. But we have to determine that with 100% certainty that that is the case. So again, two starters, same application, same part number, but with some differences. And that could confuse a few people, and it's confused me a little bit. I just find it's odd that same part numbers have different part numbers on them. It doesn't. It just says 5 roller on the gear. So another thing that you can see is that this gear is much deeper inside the starter. This one sticks out quite a bit more, but it still doesn't stick out enough to hit the flywheel when the starter is off. So basically, this flywheel sits around there. And again, I determined that just from measuring the distance between the start of the flywheel and the housing. And the flywheel kind of goes around there. So there should still be enough clearance. And the flywheel shouldn't actually hit the edge of the round part there either. Now this one is just, because it's so much longer, there's really no way that the flywheel will hit the round part there. So basically this here should be a better setup than this here. This gear here will actually go all the way and hit the bell housing here. Same as this one, but this one will have more clearance in the back. Again, it shouldn't matter, but only a test will tell 100% certainty. Now there are adjustments, few adjustments inside the starter, as well as these stopping washers here. So basically there are ways you can adjust how soon the starter engages. So the idea is that the gears mesh before the starter starts to spin. So the starter first, it has to push the gear into the flywheel, and then it starts to spin. Now if it starts to spin before it actually touches the flywheel, then you're trying to mesh gears while they're spinning, and that's really bad. And that's what actually would happen with that other starter. Again, I'm hoping that these starters already come adjusted for that. But again, everything's possible. It is possible that somehow the adjustment is wrong, so that the starter spins before it actually meshes with the flywheel. It is certainly possible. Fingers crossed and hope it works. See you in the next update video.